Unit 4, Geodynamics and Rock Mechanics. Introduction. Structural geology is a branch of geology that aims at studying about various structures found within the three types of rocks, that is sedimentary, metamorphic, and igneous. We study in detail about it third unit. The major structures formed within the rocks of igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic nature of fold, joint, faults, and unconformities. Various internal and external forces are responsible for the development of these structures. The branch of geology which deals with study of these structures in respect of their morphology, mechanism of formation, classification, and their engineering significance is referred as structural geology, which plays a key role in civil engineering as well as in mining engineering. Some geophysical methods and their applications, like that electrical methods, seismic refraction method, or the geophysical methods. These two methods play a significant role in soil exploration for foundation studies in civil engineering. For aquifer studies required for public water supply schemes and for bedrock investigation studies for dam projects. Structural geology is the study of factors such as origin, occurrence, classification, type, and effects of various secondary structures like fold, fault, joint, rock cleavage, and are different from those primary structures such as bedding and vesicular structure, which develop in rocks at the time of their formation. Some of the technical terms in structural geology. First thing, outcrop. Any geological formation exposed on the surface is called an outcrop. Bed. Most of the sedimentary rocks are deposited layer by layer, one above the other from bottom to top. These layers are called bed or strata. The process of this formation is called stratification. Next word is lamination. Lamination is nothing but the strata or extremely fine paper thin or leaf like, then stratification is replaced by lamination. The bedrock is a thin layer like a paper or leaf. Then it is called as lamination. Next, strike and dip. Strike. Strike refers to the direction in which a geological structure is present. The strike direction may be defined as the direction of the trace of the intersection between the bedding plane. The geographic direction obtained by the intersection of a bedding plane with a horizontal is called the striking of the bed. Dip. The angle of inclination of bedding with respect to a horizontal plane is called dip of the bedding. The dip classified into two types. One is true dip, another one is apparent dip. True dip. The dip measured in a direction at right angles to the strike direction is called as true dip. Then apparent dip. The dip measured in any other direction other than the true dip direction is called apparent dip, which essentially less than the true depth. These are all the examples of stripe and dip. Next, we see fold. Folds are wavy undulations developed in a country rocks whenever the region is subjected to severe pressure or stress. Folds are one of the most common geological structures found in rocks. When a set of horizontal layers are subjected to compressive forces, they bend either upward or downward. The bend noticed in rocks are called as folds. The sides of a fold, the stretch of the rocks between any crust and any of the adjacent troughs on either side, is called as a limb. In terms of their nature too, folds may occur as single local bends or may occur repeatedly and intricately folded to the tectonic history to the region. This is the examples of fold. Axis of fold. Next, some of technical terms like axis of fold. Axis of fold is the direction of line which the fold is bent on either side. That's called axis of fold. Axial plane. The plane which divides the fold into two equal halves is known as axial plane. Types of folds. There are many types of folds. Anticline fold, syncline fold, symmetrical fold, asymmetrical fold, anticlinorium, synclinorium, overturn fold, fan fold, isoclinical fold, recumbent fold, chevron fold, monoclinic and structural terrace fold, open fold, tight fold, drag fold, plugging fold, doom. So many types of folds are there. Now let us see one by one. First, anticline and syncline fold. Anticline fold. Anticline is the fold which is convex upwards. In anticlines, both the limbs are dipping away from each other. Progressively, older beds are found to upward towards the center of curvature of the fold. When the beds are bent upward, the resulting fold is called anticline. This fold is convex upwards. Naturally, in such a fold, the older beds occur towards concave side. In a simple case, the limbs of anticline slope in opposite directions with reference to its axial plane. But when the anticline is refolded, the inclined character of limb will be complicated. Syncline. Syncline is a fold which is convex towards. The limbs of the fold are dipping each other. Progressively, younger beds occur towards the center of curvature of the fold. Syncline is just opposite to anticline to its nature. That is, when the beds are bent downwards, the resulting fold is called syncline. This fold is convex towards. In this younger beds occur towards the concave side, and in a simple type of syncline, its limbs dip towards each other with reference to the axial plane. See, this is the axial plane, this is the hinge plane, this is the limb. Upward is called as anticline and downward is known as the incline. This is the examples of anticline and incline. This is the real examples. Next, symmetrical and asymmetrical folds. Symmetrical fold is a fold in which the axial plane is essentially vertical and both the limbs have the same amount of dip. That is symmetrical fold. When the axial plane divides into a two equal halves in such a way that one half is the mirror image, then the fold is called as symmetrical fold. If the compressive forces responsible for folding are not of the same magnitude, asymmetrical folds are formed. This is the symmetrical fold and asymmetrical fold. It is divided into three categories. See here, this is the symmetrical fold. This is the axial plane. Here it is, we cut off into two of equal parts. This is similar into the opposite mirror. Then it is called as a symmetrical fold. Next, asymmetrical fold. Beds in one limb dip more steeply than those in the others. That is asymmetrical fold. Next, overturned fold. Both limbs dip in same direction, but one limb has been tiled beyond vertical. This is called as a overturned fold. Asymmetrical fold, the axial plane never remains vertical. So both the limbs have unequal depths. And overturned fold. Overturned fold, a fold in which one of the limbs appears to be rotated and completely overturned from its normal position, is called overturned fold. And let us see here, see the difference between the three folds: symmetrical, asymmetrical, and overturned fold. Next, plunging and non-plunging fold. The plunge of a fold has already been described as the inclination of the fold axis to the horizontal plane. Based on this, that is, whether the axis of a fold is inclined or horizontal, the folds are grouped as plunging folds or non-plunging folds. In geological map, when strike lines are drawn for both limbs, for a non-plunging fold, they will be mutually parallel, and for a plunging fold, they will be either converging or diverging but not parallel. This is the plunging fold. This is the examples of plunging and non-plunging folds. Next, open and closed fold. Depending on the intensity of deformation, the beds of the fold may or may not have uniform thickness. If the thickness of beds is uniform throughout the folds, it is called an open fold. On the other hand, in a fold, if the beds are thinner in the limb portions and thicker at crest and trough, such a fold is called closed fold. This is the examples of closed fold, and this is the examples of open fold. Similar and parallel folds. Based on whether the shape of fold remain the same or altered with a dip, folds are grouped as similar or parallel folds. In the case of similar folds, the shape or pattern of folds remain the same at depth also. But in the case of parallel folds, the crest and trough become pointed or angular. Some of the other folds, like overturned fold, already we see it in the first picture, symmetrical, asymmetrical, and overturned fold. This is the overturned fold. And here is the real examples of overturned fold. Further, you see here, this is the overturned fold. Next, chevron fold. Usually, the crest and troughs of beds are smoothly curved, but some folds have sharply bent angular crest and troughs. Such folds are known as chevron folds. If the crest and troughs of a fold are sharp and very angular, like this is the chevron folds. Examples of this, see here, this is the sharp angular, then only it is called as this is the sharp and deep angular folds. Then it is called as the chevron folds. Isoclinical fold. Usually, the folds have inclined limbs. That is, the limbs will be mutually diverging or converging with reference to axial planes. But in some folds, the limbs will be mutually parallel to a great extent. Such folds are called isoclinical folds. These folds may be vertical or sometimes it is in horizontal, vertical incline, or sometimes it is in horizontal and sometimes it is in vertical. That is called as a isoclinical fold. This is the examples of isoclinical fold. If the both limbs, see here, if the both limbs of a fold have same amount of dip towards same direction. Here, if the both limbs of the same amount of dip as well as in same direction. See here, then only it is called as a isoclinical fold. Next, fan fold. Usually in simple anticlines, the limbs dip away from one another, and in simple synclines, they dip towards each other. But in the case of fan fold, this trend is just the opposite. That is, in anticlines of fan folds, the limbs dip towards each other with reference to their axial plane. In synclines of this kind of, the limbs dip away from each other. As the term suggests, these folds are fan shaped. Then it is called as a fan folds. See here, it is the fan fold. This is the symmetrical, asymmetrical fold. This is the overturned fold. This is the recommend fold. See, this is the fan fold. Fan fold, both the limbs overturn in either same assumes the shape of the fan. That is called as a fan fold. Next, domes and basins. Usually, a fold will have two distinct limbs, but some folds do not have any such specific limbs and appear as beds locally pushed up or down. That is, their shape appear as dome or basin. In a dome, which resembles an upper hemisphere, the dips are found in all sides from the common central top point. Thus, this is a type of anticline in the basin, which is like a bowl. the slopes are just opposite. Here, that is the dome and basin fold. An anticline uplift, see here and here. An anticline uplift with dip in all directions in a central region. See here, dip in all directions in some central region. That is called as a dome or basins. Here, see here, it is clear. Oldest formation exposed on the surface. This is the oldest formation and this is the youngest formation. This is the center point. Dip is in all directions in same. Okay, when then it's the like a dome. Then only it's called as a dome fold. Next, anticline and geosyncline. The anticline and syncline with a normal shape but a very large magnitude are called as anticlines and geosynclines. This is the anticline and geosyncline. This is the normal. This is normal syncline, anticline, and this is the geoanticline and geosyncline. Track fold. Track fold. These are the minor asymmetrical folds within a major fold, but confined only to incompetent beds which are sandwiched between competent formations. These develop because of the shearing dragging effect. This is the track fold examples. You see here, when a comparatively weak bed lies between two strong beds. When comparatively a weak bed between two strong beds and sliding motion in a stronger bed leads to the development of minor asymmetric fold. This is called as the track fold within the weaker bed. Next, mechanisms of folding. Folding of rocks takes place by different ways of accommodation of stress. In many cases, slips or shear occur in beds. The process is similar to slipping of cords which occurs when the set is folded. If they are not allowed to slip over one another, folding of the set cannot take place. This is the way in which folding generally occurs in the case of odd and competent rock like quartzites. In another kind of folding, folds are characterized by thinning of the limbs and thickening of crust and troughs. This takes place commonly in weak and incompetent rocks like shales. Folded region always under strain. Folded region are always under strain. The outer layer of the trough and crust will be always under tension and the inner layers of the crust and trough will be under compression. Hence, there will be shuttering and jointing of strata along with the axial planes. So, dams aligned along axial region of fold would be resting on unsound rocks leading to failure of the project. Dams constructed on synclinal upstream limbs lead to leakage of water beneath the dam. Similarly, strain energy will be always stored in the curvature of folds. Whenever the tunneling project, the rocks in folded region or excavated, there is possibility of sudden releases of strain energy leading to bursting of rocks. Hence, proper care to be taken while designing tunneling project and also the other projects like reservoirs, dam constructions like that. Dam along with upstream side of the strength line. In case the upstream side of anticline will be a favorable site for dam because seepage from reservoir, if any, will be along the upstream side of the anticline, that is within the reservoir side itself. So there won't be much loss of water to the reservoir of dam. In case dam along downstream side of the syncline, the downstream side of the syncline will be a favorable site for dam because seepage from reservoir, if any, will be along the downstream side of the syncline, that is within the reservoir side itself. So there won't be much loss of water to the reservoir of the dam. Anticline side. In case the dam constructed through the downstream side of the anticline, then that is not favorable for dam project because there will be loss of water to reservoir due to seepage towards the downstream side of the dam. In case the upstream side of the syncline, the dam construction means this also not favorable for the dam project because here also there will be loss of water losses through the reservoir due to seepage towards the downstream side of the syncline as well as dam. Tunnel projects, because of possibility of rock bursting during tunneling, tunnel project is not advisable in severely folded terrain. Forces responsible for the fold. Here, tension force and compression force is also a shear forces is acting on the folding. So now, here we see about folder. In next class, we see about fault. Thank you.